Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel. In today's video, we're looking at the NRL SuperCoach stock market for round 11. So getting closer and closer to Origin, and also I guess getting deeper and deeper into the season. So we're starting to see, a few consistent trends throughout, and can really make some more informed decisions. And I guess with the buys coming up, those decisions are going to become a bit more important. But anyway, let's get into it, starting with the premium hookers, 500k and above. And so at the top of the list this week, we've got Reed Marnie. So 66 from Reed Marnie last week, which is a good return. Slightly above average, so his break even is pretty nice. His, price point is quite nice too. So you could get him in if you feel like you're covered for round 13. Um, he does have good buy coverage after that, but you can also perhaps wait until after that buy to bring him in. Harry Grant, so 54. I guess he's still got that big 100 in his rolling average, which is why his break even is still in the positive with 48. So he's a gun, obviously. If you wanted to bring him in and hold over Origin, I don't think that's the worst shout. And I guess we'll talk about the buy planning in a bit more detail in an upcoming video. I have put together some stuff. It's very crude, but I guess it's what I use to analyze my team and I guess make some decisions off of that. But yeah, Harry Grant, gun, happy to have him in. Tanner Boyd, so he's been really good the last couple of weeks, so his price has really kicked up. I guess this was what we were expecting from him, and probably, I guess, if we look at all the sort of cheaper options at hooker, he was probably the one to get on. But we have traded him out, so uh, he's got DPP status, which is might be useful, but um, given that his other position is halfback, it's probably not the most useful in that sense. So wouldn't rush to bring him in, but if you've got him, hang on, he's doing the business for you. Yeah, excuse me. So Wade Egan, so a bit of a pod option. Obviously, um, has had a couple of issues with concussion this year, but the Warriors do play in the upcoming round 13 bye. So if you've got him, I think you hang on to him till then and then reassess. Reece Robson, so another point of difference option leading into the Origin period. A lot of that will come down to whether he makes the Origin side or not. But I guess, at the moment, I'd still think Cook and Coruscant would have the jump on him. But wouldn't look out of place, I don't think, in a blue jumper. Marshall King's on the bye this week, so, don't worry about him this week, but he's pretty much up there at gun level when you look at his average. He is outscoring Damien Cook quite comfortably. So if you've got him, you'd be cheering. I was thinking about bringing him in last week. Couldn't afford, so I had to, take the $100 or $100,000 haircut and get Robson instead. Blake Brayley, I've got him on the chopping block, so he's sort of back to his middling sort of 50s and then that sort of thing. And I think at 600k, there's probably better options. So give him the chop and Appy the same sort of deal. Um, Again, probably just not scoring. They do have that nice buy swing as well, playing round 16 and 19. But I think if you do have them, I'd trade to Reed Marnie if you wanted one of those three. Just better price at the moment, and also better average across the season. Onto the oh sorry, I did quickly mention Cook, but yeah, he's a gun. You know, probably would prefer Grant, and honestly, at the price you could get out, given he's a good chance of playing Origin, particularly given South's form. And get in a Robson or even all the way down to Marnie if you prefer. Onto the cheap hookers, so anyone under 500k is in this category, and at the top of the list, uh, Cody Nikorima. So, uh, he's moved to the 5'8" positions worked out well the last couple of weeks, so his price is surging, massive negative break even, but he does have the buy this week. So if you are looking for a cheeky cash grab and someone that does play round 13, you could wait a week and then get Nick Arena in next week. But if you're desperate for one this week, you could look at Jaden Sullivan at a similar price. Slightly, higher break even, but still at zero. Um, but playing a similar sort of position, I suppose, there at the Dragons. So, either one of those options if you want. After that, you've got the slow burn option of Jake Granville. He's just punching out 35 week on week. So if you want that for round 13 and 16, probably, you could take that. But I think we've got to get out of these cheap bench hookers like Sonny Luke, Brandon Hands. It just seems like when the team isn't going as well as they should be, and looking at both teams, they're around the same position. There's so many teams on, 5 wins, 4 losses, or four, uh, sorry, 6 wins without the bye being played. 12 points for the season. So, when the game's getting a bit tight, the coach isn't trusting them. So, I've got the trap symbol on both of them. I think ultimately you need to find the money to go up to a cash grab or all the way up to a more of a premium type option. I don't think there's really cheap hookers is really not an option at this point of the season. Mitch Kenny, slow burn, similar sort of thing. Looks like he's going to get dual position status as well, which could be handy. But I think, again, like I said, it's either the cash grab um, or the dual premium option. I think is really the way to go at hooker. And the cheese, he's doing all right, but he's still just outside the 500k mark. So on to the front row forwards, and at the top of the list this week we've got Corey Horsburgh, so someone I haven't featured on the stock market video this season, but seems to be a bit of a popular pick with that low break even, the dual position, um, round 13 coverage. Uh, there's also a bit of a whisper he could be an outside chance of the Queensland Origin team though, so if you're getting on for the buy coverage, you may just want to sit and wait until round 13. But at that time, his price will be well over 600k and probably not worth the value. So I'd recommend giving it a miss. But I guess given the popularity, had to give him a mention. Another mention, Jack Bellin. So I probably should have actually had the DPP symbol on him as well. Excuse me, got really dry throat. Maybe I should go the water. All right, so after that brief interlude, we're back into it. But yeah, I just had a look at his numbers because I did notice he scored a 91 this week, 3 round average of 75, and it looks like he's sort of back to where he was a few years ago before his time away from the game. So I mean that in itself is perhaps enough reason for people not to pick him, but he's in a similar boat to Horsburgh, so we have to include him in the conversation. And I think out of the two, I'd lean towards him, particularly because I think he's a fair way further down the Origin totem pole than Horsburgh is at this point in time. So then we've got Tohu Harris, so 96 on the weekend, a great return to form. He did have a try assist, which boosted that slightly, but other than that, it was just tackles and runs, which is what we expect from him, playing big minutes in the middle. So he's got the gun symbol back because he's shown that his work rate's back up and obviously somewhat injury free. And Fanua Blake, so I couldn't ignore the form anymore, given he's averaging 69 for the season, and that's across about 10 games now. So he's a gun. Um, probably a bit overpriced, and then you can get Tohu at 150k less for similar coverage and dual position status. which adds flexibility to your side. But if you've got Fanua Blake, you're absolutely cheering. Tino, he's a gun, 88 again this week. So, he has a couple of quiet games, but then he pulls out this big one on a semi regular basis. So, if you've got him, you're doing well. Just note he will be in the Queensland side, so you might have to come up with a plan for him over the Origin break. Nelson Asafa Solomona, so 47 on the weekend, which means that his price is sort of flattened out. I could have put the peak symbol on him, but he's probably a hold. If you've got him as a point of difference keeper. So I think keep the faith in Big Nasty. He'll, return the favour over the coming weeks. Joey Tarpany, so just keeps seeming to score 60s every week. So I think we can't really give him the gun status anymore until that pushes up closer to 70. He does have that ability to, break tackles and get over the line, but looks like he's just, going in and doing a job week in, week out. Ruben Cotter, so got over for a try, which added up to 90 points. So he's another sort of nice pot option. We know his work rate, but there is also, the chance he's playing Origin this year for Queensland again. Tommy Gilbert, so 62 last week, on the bye this week. So I think you just hang on to him if you've got him. I mean, you could sideways the Tohu if you needed someone for this week, but realistically, you can probably make do with who you've got, and he'll provide good coverage through the buys. Max King, so 47 is probably his lowest score he's had for a while. Might be starting to hit a bit of fatigue, perhaps. In saying that, the Bulldogs didn't cover themselves in glory on Friday night, so it could have just been a result of that. Yeah, so I think he's a good option for post round 13 if you haven't got him, given that buy coverage. But for now, don't stress if you haven't got him. Payne Haas, maybe do stress if you haven't got him. Like 55 doesn't look amazing, but he's still clearly front row forward one. So you could wait, I guess, because his break even is high, and he will play Origin. So um, I guess with the Broncos, they have two of the buys, so round 16 and 19, they're on the buy. So Payne Haas is only going to really miss one game during those major buy rounds, being round 13. And then one other buy round, which I think for the Broncos is towards the end of the season anyway. So um, yeah, you can bring him in if you like, but you can maybe wait for his price to dip potentially below 700k. But it wouldn't surprise me if he goes out and gets 90 this week and stays at around that price. And so then on to the cheap front row options. So I guess sort of a couple of mid ranges, but mostly in the cheapy category here. And I've got Harrison Edwards at the top of this list. So bottom dollar cheapy on the bubble this week. Um, and I guess one of the things we need to consider now with round 11 is that these players that aren't in the top 30 are eligible to be selected in the NRL team. So last year, Jacob Kiraz was an example of that. Um, he did get dispensation to play one game in round 10 last year, Magic Round. That was his debut. And then basically played every game after that because he was eligible through um, the eligibility from round 11 on. So Edwards seems to be, now that he's eligible, he's getting picked. We know the Bulldogs are struggling in the middle for players. So, if you are looking at a downgrade option this week and you've got some flexibility through your side, you could look at putting him in front row forward four. I don't think that's the worst option. But, there is a bit of risk with that as well. I know Chris Patolo is playing New South Wales Cup this week. Luke Thompson's not that far away, so you might not get the most amount of games out of Edwards, but I guess if you're looking for a cash out option that is also playing this week, that is one idea that you could go with. Lindsay Smith, so 52 on the weekend, so he's looking good. Maybe the slow burn's a bit unfair on him, but I think with front rowers at the cheap sort of price, we can't expect them to punch out 60 plus scores and really accelerate that cash generation. So out of the guys at that similar price, he's probably the one that's going to make the most and generate the most scoring week in week out. But obviously, other factors such as the buys and stuff might come into play in your thinking, so you may wish to look elsewhere. For example, Wiramu Greg, so 290k, scored 27 on the weekend, and if I'm being honest, that's probably what we expect from him. So he's a slow burn, but more of just a coverage over the buys, I think, is his main selling point. Tom Ailey, so he's still chipping away, 45s above his season average, so he's making some more cash, pushing up towards that 400k mark, where you then got to make a decision whether you go up or down from there, or you could potentially hold him as like a front row three, cheaper option there. Junior Paulo, so got the pod symbol on him as a really cut price option, but 41 probably isn't what you want from a front row keeper. And also with the upcoming Origin, having someone like Paulo might actually be a disadvantage, but we'll talk about that in the buy planning video in a bit more detail. Bunty Afoa, so here I guess, and Hamo Saleh, you can see sort of similar price. Afoa's a bit cheaper. They're both dual position. They're both sort of at their peak price. If you want them for the flexibility of swinging a Tohu Harris or Joey Tarpany or something like that, I understand. But yeah, that's about the only value they have, I think. Whereas Brennan, sorry, Murdoch Masilla, is that Brennan might be his first name, I don't remember. Murdoch Masilla, he is a trap. He's now coming off the bench for the Dragons, which isn't ideal, and yeah, not scoring points. So get out of that pick, sideways him to Smith or Greg, do yourself a favour there. If you got him in the second row, there is a couple of sideways options there, but just get out of the pick. And Tavita Pangai, I've included him as a weight, as a potential. He'll bottom out after the round 13 bye, so you could potentially move an Afoa or a Saleh to Tavita Pangai Jr., who has that upside, because we know he loves to offload, he loves to get amongst it with the attack. So, I think that's a really good watch, but don't get on at the moment. He's still dropping in price. Onto the second rowers. So at the top of the list, Teague Wilton. So someone I kept sort of thinking might drop off our calculations, but he keeps punching out the scores and goes and tons up on the weekend. So in a side that was well beaten by the Dolphins, I'll add to that. So really great pot option. Obviously the Sharks don't play at 13, but they do play in round 16 and 19, which means, if you're looking at Nikora, um, and you haven't got the money, save yourself 100k and get Wilton in. Jermaine Hopgood, so he's sort of settled into a role now, and averaging 72 for the season. Excuse me. And yeah, with his Origin coverage, he looks like he's going to be a pretty handy option to have. Um, Even toying with the idea of bringing him back into the side for that coverage. Dave Fafita, so 100 on the weekend, 3 round average of 99. If you don't have this man, you should be panicking, I think. So glad I've had him from day one. He's done the absolute business for me. Lockie Fitzgibbon, coming off the bye, could be a good pot option. The Knights buy coverage is good, playing 13 and 16. So I think he's a bit cheaper than Frizzell as well. He is. So if you want a Knights player for that coverage, I think Fitzgibbon is the option there. Hudson Young I've included as well just because he seems to be doing well, 3 round average of 67. Probably just below the elite sort of second row options, but you compare his points and his price to the others in those categories, and he's up there with them. So a bit of a pot option, place around 13, and I know there's been a bit of chat about him being in around the Origin side too, so maybe one just to monitor for the time being. Isaiah Yo, he's a gun. I don't know what else we can say about him. Um, so we'll move on to Olaquatu, 66 on the weekend. So, that about his average, which, sort of suggests his break evens there. Plays around 13 and 16 if he's not picked for Origin, but I think he's definitely in front of like the likes of Hudson Young and that. So, um, yeah, I think it's a fair option. Angus Crichton, so back to I guess what we're used to him on the weekend. So with 87, pretty sure he was named to start this week too. So it might be about the time to get on. So obviously his average is well down, but he hasn't played as many games as everyone else. So it could be a nice little point of difference for people who obviously didn't have him from the start. If you want to go somewhere different. Sean Lane, I think we can wait at least another week until you get him in for Origin coverage. Could dip under 600k, which could be very handy depending who you trade out. Um, Ryan Madison is gun, 78 on the weekend, so bring him in. He, again, sort of talking about the Origin, he is a chance. He's in and around the area, so if you want him for that coverage, you may just want to wait and see. Tyson Frizzell, I guess, I could say the same thing I've said about a few of the others. Could be in the Origin team, has done it before. Um, yeah, wait and see. Does have good bike coverage, all that sort of stuff. Nikora, so a gun. He's coming back in price a bit, so could be one to really target after round 13 if you haven't got him. But if you are like me and have got him, absolutely hang on to him. And I don't know. Sorry. Just moving over to the mid ranges. I thought we missed one, but he does appear on this list. So the Cardi Party is at the top of the list. And I've got the weight symbol on him. And this is more just if you are looking at him for Origin coverage. I'd just wait and see, how the Eels forward pack gets shuffled around in round 13. And if you do already own him, I would just hold him. So wait to sell him. Even if he peaks in price, just hang on to him because he will feature over Origin for Parramatta. Nat Butcher, so had the bit of an egg on the face symbol last week, but I think this is more what I was expecting from him as a 51. So, he is still a point of difference just because he can play big minutes and he does have a big work rate. Um, but we might not necessarily expect him to hold the starting spot for the rest of the season. Jacob Preston, so 2 tries on the weekend in what was a pretty ordinary performance elsewhere for the Bulldogs. So, I'm going to hold him as a point of difference option. I think a lot of people might want to cash him out for round 13. But as we've talked about with others, the Bulldogs' bye schedule after that is mint. So he is going to be a big part of that. Josh King, similar sort of price range to Preston, um, similar average. So, you've got to say that he's a pot, I think. Hosking, so I've got the chop symbol on him. And probably unfairly given, you look at his numbers there, they're comparable to the others around him. But yeah, I guess, we're still waiting for Penrith to get back to full strength with Liam Martin coming back in at some point. Um, and the bye coverage for the Panthers isn't the best. So I think the advantage of someone like a Preston, in particular, is that by coverage. Obviously, King, Nat Butcher are almost on the same page as Hosking when it comes to by coverage. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh there, but that's what I went with at the time. And go with your gut. It's pretty much the core tenet of Supercoach. Pat Carrigan, a bit of a pod. Obviously, will play Origin for Queensland, so you may want to offload, but if you can afford to hold him, you can hold him. Jackson Ford, so he's out this week with HIA. I should put the HIA symbol there. But I've just got the weight symbol. He should be back next week. Oh, sorry, no, shouldn't be back next week because they got the bye, the Warriors. But here's a really good coverage for round 13. So um, you could get out of the pick. Maybe, I should have swapped the Hosking and Ford symbols around. But yeah, I think if you want to trade him out, I'd understand. But yeah, I'd recommend holding. So it's up to you. Eli Katoa, I've got the weight symbol on him, and this is more of a wait for him to dip in price a bit more. And then you got yourself an absolute bargain at about 450, given his potential upside. Um, and I guess when you think about the Storm, they'll probably be without Christian Welsh. They'll definitely be without the likes of Grant and Munster. So having that bit of X factor and in particular, I guess playing outside of Jerome Hughes, who'll be leading the attack during that time, could actually pay dividends over the buys. Cam Murray, so I've got the chop symbol on him. I chopped him a couple of weeks ago. Just given his oh, excuse me, this cough can go. But yeah, he's absolutely a lock for the New South Wales side. Um, and that also means that he's going to miss out on two of the games that the Rabbitohs play. Um, so he's going to miss out on the three Origin games plus two other bye rounds, um, towards the end of the season. So for that reason, I think you can get out of the pick. There's definitely better value at the moment at that price. Um, and, hopefully after Origin, he becomes an absolute bargain and we can get back on him. Egan Butcher, so I think he was HIA out as well, so that's why his 14 has led to a massive break even. So, I think we cut him. He was a speculative pot at best and is now definitely not even in that category. Onto the cheapies, and as you can see, the well is getting pretty dry. So we're sort of clutching at straws here with a couple. But Tyrone Peachy at the top of the list, so 50 on the weekend, which is on average. He went up about 50k, I think. So you could get on still. It's not too late, but obviously not as much value as what there was last week. Gajeski, same sort of deal. 50 last week, 330k price. Better buy coverage than Peachy, admittedly. So, if you're looking for a buy player, you could get on. And then I've gone with Cleese Haas, Payne's younger brother, just because he's on the bubble. I wouldn't recommend getting on this pick. It was literally just showing how desperate we are for coverage at the cheaper second row um, sort of position. But yeah, if you're going to go one of them, it's the top two that you're choosing from, but obviously they don't provide a lot of value with downgrading. Onto the halfbacks, and so Mitchell Moses at the top of the list. So another HIA situation, didn't hit his break even of 20, so he actually lost money after scoring 100 and lots the week before. Um, yeah, so if you've got him, you just hold, I suppose. You've got him for the Origin buy coverage. Um, no need to panic on that. Excuse me. Sean Johnson, so point of difference option. You've got him because he covers a couple of those buys. There's not really much to talk about. A halfback, clear as a gun. DC's a point of difference, which you probably want to get out of. And I'd probably should have put the cut symbol on him, getting ready for Origin. Reynolds is a trap. Avoid as much as you can. Hines is a gun. This hasn't really changed much over the last couple of weeks. Um, but yeah, I guess we need to talk about it. But and I guess when we talk about buy planning too, you'll see that my plan very much revolves around holding the two guns that will probably form the halves partnership for New South Wales. Onto the 5'8" position where there's a bit more to get into, and a couple of symbols have gone uh, awry here, so apologies for that. But Brandon Wakeham's at the top of the list. 72 on the weekend, which gives him a nice little negative break even. So if you're looking for a bit of a pre-origin cash grab at the 5'8" position, you could trade to Wakeham and take advantage of that. Plus, I guess the Tigers finding a little bit of form. Jack Whiten, so 39 on the weekend, which sort of suggests that the ship sailed on that trade. Um, I guess his value may lie in round 13 coverage, so it's probably not the best pick, but definitely not the worst to bring him in at this point. Oluwapu, so on the bubble this week, we have to talk about Oluwapu, obviously. But just the fact that he's coming off the bench means he is always a chance of that sort of 16 score, as opposed to more the 40 that he got on debut. So for that reason, I'm not gonna to go near him for my main team. Um, and I think I'm actually leaning towards not even including him in the Bulldog project, which is a bit sad. Um, but I guess it's just one of those things that hasn't quite panned out the way we'd hope. Dylan Brown, so he's proven his gun status with back-to-back hundreds, break even of 6. So if you've got him, you're cheering. If not, you really need to get on now. Otherwise, you're probably not going to be able to afford him during the Origin period, where he is really going to come into his own. Kieran Foran, so 2 tries on the weekend and 88, sees the old man symbol come back. But that's the only reason we put him in here is because he is an old man. No need to worry about bringing in Kieran Foran. Katoa's on the bye this week, so 52, scoring his first try. So maybe a sign of things to come, but I think the slow burn just rolls on. So, you could make money out of the Katoa to Wakeham trade if you're, wanting to make some quicker cash. You could downgrade to Oluwapu if you need the funds to facilitate another move or two. But other than that, I think you just hold Katoa. He's going to play round 13 and round 19, so you can probably afford to hold. Crossland, so I guess Kurt Mann being out this week probably helps him a bit, playing big minutes at hooker, but still got the slow burn symbol on him until he suggests otherwise. Matt Burton is a bit of a pod, so it looks like now that he's more involved in the 7 jumper, he does have that ability to score a bit higher, and we should see this average creep up towards the gun levels. Obviously, I guess playing in the Bulldogs might limit that somewhat. Kalen Ponga, we can continue to wait. His break even is still high compared to what he's been scoring. Plus, also Origin coming up. You'd imagine he'd be somewhere in Queensland's plans, if not at fullback. He could definitely play a wing. Um, and yeah, just has that sort of ability to pop up in big games and do the business. Cam Munster, got him as a gun, 71. That's about on par for him. So that's great. And a team that was well beaten in the end. Luke Keary, so I have included him, and I probably could have saved a bit of room by not including him. Uh, and I guess, got sort of the likes of Tom Dearden and Ezra Mam in the same sort of category of just passing just due to their middling averages. Maybe out of those 3, Dearden is the one I'd be most interested in because of Origin coverage. Um, but yeah, I think there's probably better options at either a cheaper price or higher price. Oh, and I almost forgot Cody Walker is a gun. So the break even is just based off his comparison to his average, but He scored 86 on the weekend. There's no reason he can't beat that this week. Onto the premium centre wing options. And so at the top of the list, another player that I haven't probably given much thought to throughout the season. But Matt Timoko from the Raiders. So, like a few of these guys that I've just started to mention, plays around 13, which is nice. His season average and 3 round average is up there with the best of them. And still a nice break even. So, if you are looking for a premium option to play around 13, that's a bit different. I reckon you couldn't go too wrong with a pick like that. Joey Manu so continues to pump out gun scores at the 5'8 position. A little whisper about Sam Walker coming back into the side this week, which would not be great for Joey Manu SuperCoach stocks, but I think until such time that fabricates and you see the scores dip, you stay on. Dan Gagai, so back this week, averaging 74 for the season. So that straight away means that he's got to be talked about in this conversation. Ronaldo, he keeps scoring tries, so we keep considering him. Uh, Campbell Graham had a bit of a flatter game. I guess, a little bit more ball going out the left hand side of the attack, um, which obviously meant that he wasn't getting the tries. It was Alex Johnston instead. But we've seen what he can do, so you've always got to consider him an option. Nick Meaney, so 44 is probably not the score we've been getting from Nick Meaney, but average of 76, playing fullback, kicking goals, automatically means he's a gun. Azarko on the bye this week, so if you've got him, I think you hold. Um, I guess if you're sort of thinking about Ozako as the player he used to be, you want to get out of the pick. But I think he's another example of a player that goes to a club with a good coach. So this is Melbourne. This is potentially the Roosters to a degree. This is Penrith. This is now the Dolphins with Wayne Bennett. He makes these players that have the ability but maybe haven't shown it, and just sort of gives them that confidence to really show who they are. So one, I'm probably disappointed I didn't get on reflection, but that's how it goes sometimes. And whether I rate him enough to bring him in, I might still have that bias of years past. But if you've got him, hold him. He's doing the job. There's no need to stress. Lachlan Miller, so basically using the same criteria as Nick Meaney, goal kicking fullback, he's a gun. That's all we need to say on that. Ewan Aitken, so nice dual position option with the centre wing, second row forward swing, but again, being a Dolphin is on the bye this week. And Stephen Crichton, so we bought him in as a cash grab a couple of weeks ago. You can see 42, which is even below his average of 60 for the season. So you've made your 100k out of him. You got to give him the chop. Onto the mid-range options. So between 500k and 650, there's a lot of options. So the top of this list is Connolly Lemu-Elu. So another nice score on the weekend, 79, another try, which means that 600k, negative break even of negative 13, dual position. I think he's a must have going into the buys. If you don't have him, it's probably not too late. Sifa Talakai, so turned up on the weekend with a break even of 0. So, we know he has that ability to go big. But, there is other options as well that provide a little bit more consistency. David Nofaluma, so back in the side for the Tigers, scoring a ton. So, and at the cheaper price point as well is definitely worth a consider. Obviously, like Talakai doesn't play round 13, but does play 16, 19. So, could be a nice pot option. We know he's got the pedigree. Ravalawa, so the ship sailed on that trade. It was last week if you did want to get him in. Break even of 35 means he hasn't got that much extra cash to make. Um, and yeah, there's probably other options of the Dragons that we want to look at bringing in. Hayes Perham, so tentative pod just looks like he's starting to get more and more comfortable at fullback. So, hopefully those scores keep and that average keeps creeping upwards. CNK, point of difference option. 43 on the weekend probably isn't quite where we want it when we can look at other scores across the board. Um, so, yeah, plays around 13 though, so don't panic trade. If you've got him, I think hold to around 13 and then reassess. I do have a bit of an idea around that, but probably one more for the biplaning video. Ruben Garrick, so 83, despite Manly not being that good at all. That's why he's a gun. And at 540k, you're probably doing pretty well um, if you can bring him in with his nice buy coverage as well. I think, another must-have option. Brian Toe, 89 on the weekend, so nice gun option. Obviously, you'd think would be the front runner to get one wing spot for New South Wales. Um, so, in saying that, Penrith have that nice buy for Origin players. So if you've got him, you could easily hold him, I think, over that time. Onto the second page, and we'll start with the hammer. So, he's on the buy this week, and you can see his average and particularly 3 round average really starting to dip. But, playing at fullback, he is going to get himself involved quite a bit. So, uh, another one, I guess, he's good for the buy coverage, but you could also move on if need be. So Alex Johnson, so I have put the egg on my face symbol this week, and it's a it's probably not the biggest one to be honest because he scored 2 tries and still only got 76 points. I did have someone ask who's a better option, and I rattled off. I asked about AJ, and I said I wouldn't want to trade him in myself. And then when asked for a better option, I did rattle off Hammer, CNK, but I'm pretty sure I did say Garrick and Lemuelu as well. So I was 50-50 on that. But I thought I'd just acknowledge that because, again, it's great to see people commenting on these videos, asking questions. I do enjoy it a lot. Just enjoy talking about SuperCoach, really. That's how this has started. So, yeah, I've got the egg symbol there. But as you can see, that 76 is what his break even is this week. And South have probably been playing more on the right edge than the left edge anyway this year. So, wouldn't go there. There's actually, you might be able to see there's actually the pass symbol in underneath. There's a little bit of a line there. A couple of bad formatting decisions there. But yeah, so that's why we've gone with the egg for Alex Johnston. Will Penasini, so Origin period pod. Parramatta's nice buy schedule. So if you got him, hold him. But as you can see, 42 last round, average of 61. That's about what you can hope for, I think, out of the pick. Jack Bird, so nice dual position option, plays around 13. Um, him or you and 8 can I think are the right play. Although at this stage, with the way Bird is, you could almost sideways the Lemuelu and get a slightly better result. Greg Marzu, so nice Origin coverage. That's why he's a pod. Val Holmes will probably play Origin, so if you wanted to cut him, I'd understand. And probably, yeah, got too many pods here. Need to start mixing these up a bit. And Jacob Kiraz, so 39 on the weekend, coming back from injury. 3 round average of 32 looks pretty ordinary, so we can just wait on him. And I think he is the perfect target for round 14. So after the bye in round 13, he is the first person on my shopping list. Onto the cheap centre wing options, less than 500k. And I've got Max Fiernay there as the best buy this week. So I know a few people have come out and suggested that, he's not got the best job security. He plays for the Dragons, which means he's not going to score a lot of tries the way they're going. Um, and, a lot of people are keen on Valence Tafare from the Dolphins. You get an extra 30k. you get a guy who's going to score big, um, which, is fair enough. But I think when you're looking at these cheapies, the reason why we talk about waiting until you're on the bubble to bring players in uh, is because you know that they're guaranteed to at least make some money. All right, so even if Fiona goes out and only scores another 37, at 60k he's going to make another 30 or so k, and that makes him 265. So then he gets dropped the next week. All right, you can then go down to Tafare and make 60k. It's not ideal, but it does work out. If you bring in Tafare, you're getting him in the absolute bottom dollar. Right, he's got the bye this week. He plays his second game next week. Say he gets injured, you've now got to try and find either another bottom dollar rookie to trade in for him, or you've got to find money to trade up to someone else. So, it is a bit of risk and reward, and there has been times in the past where having that bottom dollar rookie ready to go does pay off. I went super early on Dream Buller this year, for example, um, but that was a calculated risk. So if you wanted to go to Faro, I totally get it. We'll talk about him when he gets on the bubble, which should be in time for round 13, and he is the prime target then. But until then, I'm happy to downgrade, get Max Fiernay in this week, which is actually the trade that I propose, and probably the trade I will do. The preview video this week could be pretty boring because I haven't gone too far away from my initial thoughts. But yeah, Max Fiernay, I think if you want to get out of one of those other options at centre wing, absolutely bring him in this week. Jared Croker, so nice cash cow option and one I'm kicking myself about every week. He just keeps pumping out decent scores. He's making cash hand over fist at the moment. Yeah, so if you got him, you're cheering. You could still get on. I think this is the absolute last week to get on, to take advantage of that round 13 buy coverage. But I think next week you might see the ship has sailed on Jared Croker. Paul Alamotti, so we're still playing the waiting game for him to spike in price again. 330, there's not a lot of value. You're only making 100k if you go from him to Fiernay, for example. Um, so yeah, he has the ability to get over and, a couple of tries, get 80, 90, push back up towards 400k. The other option is you could actually just use him for that later buy coverage, which may end up being the way I go. I'm not 100% sure yet. Um, I guess my initial buy plan doesn't have that, but it could change. Taruva, so you can cut him, or as you can see, his average break even all around the same sort of point. So you could wait for another spike game. Um, yeah, I think if you've got one of the other guys down below, you cut them first, and then Taruva is the next on the list. Michael Cheekamp, so nice cheaper DPP option. Uh, playing on the edge for Souths. So um, yeah, I know a couple of people that got him and are happy to have him. It's if that's your go, feel free. Will Warbrick, so 24 last week, which sort of puts him squarely on the chopping block with a break even of 64. 403 is going to be his peak price for a while, I think. And then Tyrell Sloan, so scored a 20 on the weekend, so dipped in price by about 30k. So if you didn't cut him last week, you absolutely have to get out of the pick. He's a massive roller coaster sort of pick. Um, yeah, he's got his spike games out of the way. He's made his money. He's still 200k above his starting price. So you've done well if you had him. Get rid of him. And onto the fullbacks. So Dream Buller. So another 59 on the weekend. The Tigers are winning games, which only sort of helps cement his job security. Massive negative break even. if you can hold him through the round 13 bye, I think he's actually going to be a really good hold until the end of Origin. So, yeah, get on if you haven't. Feel free to get out of most other picks. Actually, I should probably go through those one at a time and assess there. Yeah, so maybe I've been a bit hasty with most other picks because, I mean, if you've got Gutherson, you hold, he's good Origin by coverage, he's scoring well enough. So that's a nice point of difference. Teddy's bottom out in price, so if you wanted to bring him in, now's the time to do it. You could probably wait until post Origin all that, which is my plan, but I can see why people would want to get him in. Tommy Turbo, so he showed on the weekend why he's a gun. Scored 82 in a team that was well beaten. Um, and a bit of talk about the fact he might be, just on the edge of the Origin team, given Josh Carr's back this week. Brian Tyre is obviously a lock on one wing. You've got someone like Dylan Edwards who's in cracking form. Um, and yeah, it might make it a bit difficult for Turbo to find a spot. In the centres, you've got Trell will probably take one spot on the left, on the right. They seem to like Stephen Crichton to partner with Tyler, that Penrith combination. Campbell Graham's done absolute bits this season at Souths. And there's talk about a lot of the Souths combinations getting in. So it'll be interesting to see. Surely Turbo fits somewhere. He's just that good of a player. But if he's not and he's playing round 13, round 16, hello, absolute bargain. So that's the dream. But, he's a gun. I'm holding him, even if he is playing Origin. Dylan Edwards, pod option, as we said, he's really good form. 122 again on the weekend. So if you've got him as a pod, you're doing well. Will Kennedy, a pod option, but maybe more so the back half of the Origin period when the Sharks have their nice run. Reece Walsh, pod can go off with like the 93 he got on the weekend, but surely is the number one front runner for Queensland fullback spot. Drinkwater, pod, mostly because of his Origin coverage, round 13, round 16. But I mean, if Turbo's available, who would you rather have? And Latrell is a gun. Didn't score as well on the weekend, but that's a forgive. So now that I've talked about it, if you've got two of these guys, you probably don't necessarily want to give any of them up for Buller. um, maybe maybe Walsh is the one that I'd say most likely. But yeah, if you have got Buller like myself, you're absolutely cheering because of the value. And that gets us to the end of the stock market video. So, as I said, we'll come up with a bit of a buy planning discussion video later in the week, perhaps. Might even get it out of the way and in the can today, and just release it later in the week. We'll have the usual sort of round preview stuff tomorrow, just when I go through, lock in all my final trades, have a look at what everyone else is doing. Um, and then obviously all the round review stuff on Monday next week. So, if you've got any thoughts around any of these players, feel free to comment. If you want to ask questions about your team, I'll do my best to have a go. Sometimes I'll end up with egg on my face, but you shoot enough shots, you're going to miss some eventually. But yeah, if you are enjoying the stock market video content, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and other than that, I'll catch you in the next one.